episode is an introduction to money and abundance. And I'm going to just clarify the two of those before I begin. So I think abundance is something that you can really, it's a feeling that you have all you need. And all you want, even. You have all you need and all you want. It's a sense of, there are friends, there is support, there is comfort. All the things that you could possibly want and need are there. With money, it's slightly different because money's a little bit more on the nose, and money's a little bit more kind of related to our current structures and our systems of value that we have. I don't imagine money will be with us for very much longer, but for the moment, it's here, and money is how we determine our personal value and the value of things in this life, in this society, in this society more than in this life, because I think our society will change, and how we consider money will also change. But for the purposes of the next few months, we're going to be looking at money and abundance. And I want to talk a little bit about money here and how we can develop, how we have these relationships towards money. Now, as you're listening to this yourself, I imagine that you've most likely kind of had a similar kind of upbringing to me, or a similar relationship to money than I've had. What I notice with this Patreon, and I notice with a lot of the courses that I do, is that it's typically people who can kind of relate to my experience are sort of the people who join. So there is a kind of your vibe attracts your tribe thing that happens with these communities. And I think a lot of you guys, we all kind of come from, we have similar mentalities. I know that a huge amount of us are Irish, but even the non-Irish, I think you've been hooked in by a range of similarities. And so I grew up with the idea that really money wasn't for me. And we grew up quite poor, and money was just it's sort of a scary thing. There was never enough of it, and even when it came, I had a couple of instances of my parents sort of just like losing money, actually losing physical money, and us hunting the house for a £20 note, or, like even, I can remember a very specific incident. I think it was after my Holy Communion, if you remember that. That's one of the stages of indoctrination of the Catholic Church, my Holy Communion. And I had cash, I think maybe a £10 note or something. That shows my age, doesn't it? I mean, kids nowadays, it's certainly not, the amount of money they get is a lot more than that. But anyway, it ended up in the fireplace. And this was a big story then, about how I had burnt money, and then it wasn't replaceable. And so, like, for me, with so many of my early experiences of money, there wasn't enough of it, and if it was there, it could be taken away. It wasn't really mine. It could always be taken away. And so this kind of belief, this sort of led me into a relationship with money where I typically didn't really even want a lot of it. I always had quite a strange relationship where I always wanted more money. Always felt a lot of jealousy towards those who had money. Always felt a lot of resentment, actually, towards those with a decent amount of money. But at the same time, when opportunities came for me to kind of have money, I was also a bit scared of that too. So was really kind of in a very tricky relationship with money. And one of the big things that we're going to be looking at over these few months is just establishing your relationship with money. Do you love money? In the same way that you might love a friend or a family member, or you might love dancing or singing. And even when I sort of say that sort of thing, like loving money, do you love money? Is there a part of you that goes, no, Connor, you're not supposed to love money. Money's evil. Money's bad, And when we have these sort of beliefs, when we carry these kind of beliefs that there's something wrong with money, we repel money. Now let me just get this clear. At this moment in our society, money is simply just a measurement for capacity and potential. It's not real. I really don't think that we're going to be dealing with money in the same way that we do with it today in even 10 years' time. But for the moment, what it is it's a measure of worth, it's a measure of value, it's a measure of potential. You, by engaging in this course, by simply being a self-aware person, you know that life is all about achieving your potential. You know that your path to happiness is about connecting with your soul's purpose, following your intuition, leaning into your edges, taking risks, all of those things. Money allows you to do that. Personally, money has allowed me to kind of create a little bit sort of like non-mainstream content, to sort of be, to sort of practice what I preach and not actually work that much. It's allowed me to be sort of experimental. It's allowed me to be free and really live my purpose. And I feel like when I talk about my purpose is really to connect to joy and freedom and inspire others to do the same. So money allows me to do that. Money, for me, is the energy behind so much of my freedom. And so the more you can understand that money is just like the fertilizer behind your purpose, it's the fuel behind your purpose, I think the more you can begin to say, okay, money is actually this great thing. Money is this magic dust. And if I sprinkle it on my purpose, it accelerates my purpose's growth, right? So the next thing that we kind of need to do with money, now that we sort of have begun to reframe money as not only a positive thing, but like a very important thing, and a very important thing for you. The more you can connect to your purpose, the more you can trust and believe your purpose, the more deserving you'll feel of money. There's something very interesting. I don't know about you guys, but I grew up with a huge amount of resentment. I still have traces of it today towards entitled people, or at least entitled people shock me. And sometimes the entitlement that I perceive in others, it's not even entitlement, it's just self-belief. It's really just someone saying, I'm going to do this. Now that is reflecting some of my own kind of weak elements of my confidence. But this is the thing, when you can really, really connect to your purpose, and I would like reflecting back on myself too, and I think you can reflect here, I would say that at the moment I am between purposes, so to speak. One purpose is kind of beginning to wane, and another one is about to take off in autumn. And that's kind of sort of what it's all kind of connected together, but you can feel your purpose sometimes rolls out in waves. There can be a huge flow of energy, you reach a level, and then a plateau, and then a flow of energy to another level. And currently I can just sort of feel myself, I'm in a little bit of a plateau, and I'm building up for the next leap. So, and what happens when you connect to your purpose, when you connect to the next leap, is that with that comes a kind of a very what would I say, like a kind of an assuredness, which is like an entitlement, where you go, no, I am on a mission, a very important mission, and in order to get that mission, in order to achieve what I want to achieve, I need certain doors to be opened, and I need certain financial backing. I often kind of think of Bob Geldof in these moments, and I think of Live Aid. And although we can debate the inefficiency of aid to Africa, and we can debate the kind of the wisdom of him and Bono as rock stars trying to save the world and whatever was going on there. there's still something to be said for connecting to something, a purpose and a mission that's bigger than you, a service to the world. Now, we're going to talk about more about this as we move through, but the more you can believe in your service, the more money you can command, the more abundance you can command. So that's important. And what we need to work on with that, and how we need to look on this, is we need to just begin to play with trust. So most of us will have grown up with the idea that you'd have grown up in scarcity. You know, you'd have grown up in homes where the message from your family was, oh, well, if you don't take that job, somebody else will, or there's not enough to go around, or, you know, my favorite one, like if you'll bankrupt us if you leave the fridge door open for longer than 5 seconds, right? So there's a lot of this language that makes us believe that there's not enough to go around, and we have to fight each other, and that you just have to say yes to any opportunity that comes your way. What it does is it inhibits trust. It inhibits our capacity to trust. This is also really similar to relationships. You know, like so much of the dynamics and energetics of money are the dynamics and energetics of love. They are really intertwined. You know, quite often we will sort of just accept someone. You know, even though we perhaps don't really love that person, or we feel that person isn't really our match, we will just sort of say, oh, well, this is what I deserve, right? Same thing happens with money. What we're trying to learn to do here is we're trying to learn to expand. And the way that we expand is we move in the direction of trust. Right now, as you're listening to this, is there something you can do as an act of trust? What is the thing that you want to launch? What is the dream that you'd like to achieve? I've said this before in a couple of the podcasts, and I'm going to say it again. I think it's really important that you begin to have revenue streams that aren't really connected to salaries, but are just connected to something that you do, that you control, and that you can then determine your relationship with money based purely on your emotional output. So with the work that I do, I get to see this all the time. I run courses, I sell courses, and etc., etc. And so I get to play with my feeling of worth. I get to then trust. You know, I get to trust that, you know, enough money will come in all the time. That people will do my courses. There will be an interest in what I'm doing. And when you can do that, when you can kind of create this sort of, well, you could call it a side hustle if you want, you really get to play with those energetics. And that's important, because in this way, you learn to trust. You learn to expand. You learn to see, oh, I'm always taken care of. Money always comes through. There's a lovely thing in the monastic tradition where monks, typically at a certain age or at a certain stage of their spiritual development, will go walkabout for a year. And they'll leave the monastery with no money and just go. They'll go wherever. And they'll live on the streets without a home. And they will experiment with abundance and being provided for. And what they learn through this experience is that they're protected. You know, it's so important that we can begin to feel, and it really is, it's a felt thing, it's an embodied thing, but begin to feel, hey, I'm protected in this world. It's so important. And I know so many of us, we grew up in homes where we didn't feel protected, in homes where we didn't feel that we could be ourselves, in homes where we weren't sure that we were really loved or we were really lovable. And so to step out into the world with this open heart and saying, okay, I'm going to trust that I'm taken care of. I'm going to trust that by following my soul's purpose, that by following the small murmurings inside me, I will be led on an adventure. I will not know the outcome, but I will know that I will be fed and watered, and there will be a roof over my head. And that's what we're trying to do. So much of our relationship with money is just a mirror. It's reflecting back to us our sense of worth, our sense of value, our sense of deserving. It's coming back to this thing entitled. I know myself, some of the best work that I've ever done has come from a place of feeling safe in the world. Before I was really tapped into this sort of knowledge, right, and I would write books and things like that, I never felt safe. I was always terrified of, like, when a book would come out or when an article would be published or something, there was always this like desperate hope that, oh, hopefully this is the time that I make it. Hopefully this is the time that something breaks. Hopefully this is the time when I get the recognition. But stepping out of that kind of cat and mouse game with survival, and just tumbling into this place of trust that the universe will take care of you as long as you connect to your purpose. So, as you're listening to this right now, it might even be just useful to sort of think about this, like, what is your purpose? Now, your purpose can be very simple. Your purpose can be just, oh, my purpose right now is to learn this language, or my purpose right now is to move to another country, or my purpose right now is just to get healthy. So just connecting to like the sort of the bare thread, like the slightest evidence of purpose, is already the beginning. And then the next step is like, okay, well, how can I support this purpose? So for example, if you're someone who's like, you feel like, oh, my purpose is to communicate now, it's to write a podcast, to create a podcast, then how can you allow money, your dear friend money, to support you in that? Is there a way that you can just begin to sort of already feel the gratitude inside your body for all this amazing podcasting equipment that you have, or the studio you're going to rent? And this is really where we go. It's understanding that you deserve to live your life to its fullest potential, and money will enable that. And there's nothing wrong with money, there's nothing wrong with wanting money, and there's definitely nothing wrong with you living a comfortable, beautiful life. This is your gift to the world. Your gift is that small bubbling thing inside you. The more you connect to it, the more you support it with your time, support it with your finances, the more you'll be protected. And this is what we're going to be talking about over the next few months. Personally, I've had such an anxious relationship with money for so long, and it just created so much drama in my life in terms of just avoiding certain things or missing out on certain things. And when I think back to all the moments where there was potential for me to have fun and joy and just really spontaneous happiness, and it was thwarted by just fears, financial fears, I feel very sad about that. But also, it renews my determination to not allow that to happen again, to not let those sort of programmed systemic fears about scarcity steal from my joy. So this is it. It's a game of perception. Can you believe that abundance is everywhere and that your financial desires can be met? And that's what we're going to be looking at over the next few months. leaning into this idea that abundance is very much mindset, money is an energy, and by connecting to your desire and your purpose and your soul's call, you can create financial freedom for yourself. So there'll be lots more about this. Thank you, and talk to you soon. Love you. Bye.